Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be reading 3 Romantasy books, all, I believe, available on Kindle Unlimited. We're gonna see what they're all about. We're gonna see if it's a good time. I mean, maybe from the title of this video, you can tell that it wasn't, in fact, the best of times, but I think it was entertaining. I didn't want to not post this video, even if none of the books really worked for me. So, briefly tell you what we're gonna be reading for this year vlog. First up, we have Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This book is supposed to be a spooky game sort of story. Our heroine enters into this deadly competition. She falls in love while she's in this spooky place. Sounds interesting, and I'll let you know whether or not it is when we read it. Also, The Wraith King. This is a book that I feel like I have been seeing often on Threads, and the cover is just so beautiful, so I knew that I wanted to pick this one up. Then lastly, we have A Touch of Gold and Madness. I was looking for a third book to read for this video because, I don't know, I feel like I've heard a lot about Phantasma, I've heard a lot about The Wraith King, and I just needed something else to add, 3 books. Nice round video. I watched the lovely Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader read A Touch of Gold and Madness, and the way that she talked about it and the way that she loved this, I figured I needed to pick it up for myself, so we're also gonna read that. You're ready for an adventure, buckle up, let's get vlogging. What a start we are off to. I decided to pick up A Touch of Gold and Madness by K.L. DeVore. Yes, this Kindle is massive. I got The Scribe a few months ago, and I've been whipping her out more recently to read KU books. For some reason, I thought I didn't have a charger for this. It's like, oh no, I don't have any micro USB, conveniently forgetting that this is USB-C. So anyway, no one cared about that. Let's talk about this book. I am actually listening to the audio version of this. I read a little bit with my eyeballs, and then I wasn't feeling it, so I decided to pony up the $7 for the audiobook. And I decided also to pick this one up on the recommendation of Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader. I watched a Romantasy vlog from her. This one is about our 2 main characters, Gray and Griffin. Our heroine is a kinetic, and our hero is an elemental. A long time ago, just kidding, a couple of years ago, there was this big thing called Devolution Day, where elementals, I guess, kind of like blew the world up in a way, and now everybody is kind of living underground, and or I think 3/4 of the world's, no, 3/4 of the world's population no longer exists. So humans, elementals, kinetics, that's what we've got going. And our heroine's a kinetic, our hero is an elemental. The kinetics have like powers on the electromagnetic spectrum or something to that effect. I can't exactly remember what our heroine's skills are. I think she's like marked as having skills and yet doesn't have them. And the way that these people are marked, they have like colors like racing up and down their skin to show you like what part of the spectrum that they are on, I guess. And everybody has different powers, and everybody has kooky hair colors, and most people are named after their hair. So like if you've got red hair, named Scarlet. If you have, I don't know, green hair, your name's Forest, that sort of thing. And our heroine is the daughter of the king of the kinetics, and his goal is to hunt down and kill the prince, I guess, the ruling family of the elementals. Like everybody else is dead, the prince is still around, and he is supposedly responsible for Devolution Day, responsible for all the like bad things that have happened. And so our heroine, the adopted daughter of the king, is of course an assassin, and she is tasked with killing this guy. And in the first like couple of chapters, she comes into contact with him and then just like doesn't kill him. She's like not very good at her job, very much giving Selena in that way. This book's interesting, I will say, just conceptually, because we've got this sort of like book cover that looks very high fantasy, but the vibe is giving like 2010s YA dystopian for sure. Like you've got this sort of like day that happens that like kills a bunch of people, and everybody's like not totally living underground, but there's like underground speakeasies, and like just vibe, it's giving very much dystopian. So definitely not what I was expecting. Like obviously I heard Rachel talk about this book, but I guess I just didn't pick up on that exact vibe, or like didn't think that that was going to be the vibe of the book, but it is the vibe of the book. I feel like so far I'm kind of intrigued. Our hero Griffin, like a voice in his head that tells him to kill people, and he definitely has killed a few people already. So I find that to be interesting. I feel like often we've got heroes who like maybe have killed a couple people but only for good reason, or we've got a hero who like refuses to kill people because he like thinks it's bad, or I don't know, some shit. This guy's like actually kind of a bad guy, which is fun, and his goal, I should say, is to kidnap our heroine. For what reason, for what purpose, I'm not quite sure. She's trying to kill him, he is trying to kidnap her. I wonder who's gonna win. Probably him, I'm guessing, because at this point in the book our heroine's like trying to escape from her kingdom. I'm not really sure. Kingdom is just like, that feels too fantastical for what this is. Like they're in Atlanta. I don't love it. I'll be honest with you. I think that like I was looking for more traditional romantasy, but I can appreciate that this one is very different than most of the romantasy books that I've read. Follow like all of this. Well, I was gonna say it doesn't follow the same tropes. It does. It follows the same tropes, but like at least the vibes are slightly different. So like good for it. I don't know. I'm gonna get further into the book and let you know my feelings evolve. I hope that it's sexy. I kind of like that the guy is like described a little bit Kylo Ren funny, but the heroine's fucking annoying, so. I don't know, y'all. It might be getting a little too Juliet in the purple super suit for me. I just... what to say? Hero and heroine have united. Reunited, some might say. One thing I distinctly remember from Rachel's review of this book is that it is complex. There's plot twists. There's plot twists. That's what I want to say. There's a lot of reveals that go on. And here's my issue. Maybe I'm just a fucking hater. I think I know that I'm a hater, and I think y'all know that I'm a hater as well. But the thing is, I think there's too many reveals. I think there's too many plot twists. I think there's too many things that happen to where it doesn't really feel that exciting anymore. It feels a little bit cheap. I can't stress enough how much this is kind of actually very much reminding me of Shatter Me. And y'all know how I feel about Shatter Me. It's weird. It's honestly weird because I initially was like intrigued. I liked the idea of the magic, but the more we learn, the more I don't care. And I think part of the problem is that like we get this big ass like glossary and or explanation of powers at the beginning of the book. And then throughout the first part of the book, we're getting explanation into powers. And then in the middle of the book, we're getting even more explanation into powers. And I'm like, where's the plot? What are we doing? What's happening? Not a lot happening. There's just a lot of reveals and a lot of here's what the magic system looks like. And I'm just like not that compelled. Like I don't think this is like thrilling stuff. I mean, obviously I know Rachel and I like our tastes don't 100% align, but like I just didn't expect us to like have such differing opinions. Granted, she didn't give this book like 5 stars, but it's feeling a little too starry for me. You know what I mean? I'm glad I have the audiobook for sure, but I'm also a little bit sad that this is how I'm spending my Friday night, all alone while my husband's on a fishing trip, listening to some nonsense. God, I really want to spoil. Well, I'm in. The hero in this book, his name isn't Griffin. I'm just gonna say that. He has a different name, and it's corny. That's all I want to say. Tomorrow's gonna be a better day, though. I feel it in my gut. I feel it in my soul, and God willing, it will be, you know? I'm really fucking hyped for the Wraith King, and I think that's gonna come through for us. I think it will, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish this book up. I don't want to ramble too much about a book that I'm kind of like, about. The other two are gonna be good. They will. I'm manifesting. You ever just like Debbie Ryan a little too close to the sun and pop off one of your dip nails? Me neither. I finished that book yesterday. The book that I can't even think of the name of at this point because it was that not fun and not memorable. That's okay because I have gotten 20% into The Wraith King by Juliet Frost and I having a good time as I expected to, but it's good to know that that's actually the case. So, say about this little book. This is about our main characters, Una and Gall. I don't know if it's Gal or Gall, but it's Goll. I think his full name is Galaya, which glamorous, love it. At the beginning of the story, our heroine is in the dungeons of this rival palace, has been kind of kidnapped. She was like walking in the woods trying to find something important and then she ends up getting kidnapped, tortured, captured, all these things. And she's about to be fed to this pit of creatures until she ends up getting saved by the king's son. The king's son was predicted to kill him, or like, I guess a prophecy said, you're gonna kill your daddy. And so he wasn't like super jazzed about this. And he's like, you know what? You can go live in the dungeons. I'm not gonna kill you, but you get to live there forever. So that's what he's been doing. And the dungeon, like room that he's in, the cell that he's in, keeps him powerless, but he finds a way to like break free and save this girl who's like being lowered into a pit on a hook. So she had her wings ripped off. They used to be this like milky, beautiful color. Now she has no wings, which is super sad. He ends up saving her. They end up leaving the palace together and she is brought back to her homeland and he is like plotting his revenge against his daddy, I guess. Flash forward 5 years and there is an ongoing war between the Light Fae and the Dark Fae. She is a Light Fae. He and his father are Dark Fae. Obviously the Light Fae guy is like, hey, you kidnapped my daughter and ripped her fucking wings off, so we're gonna fight. And by fight and tussle, I mean like we're gonna go to war. So Light Fae, Dark Fae are kind of, you know, at odds. Our heroine gets kidnapped again. She certainly does. By the Fae King, who is in power. Again, that guy's dad. She gets brought to the palace and she is going to, I guess, live there and be tortured for 5 years because that's how long the war has been going on, blah, blah, blah. She's like the reason the war started. So it's like, you know, getting your payback, I guess, to an extent. But who should appear but Gall? He is going to kill his daddy. He does kill the daddy. And now he is the official Wraith King and he is going to do whatever he wants. He wants to end the war definitively, and by that I mean he wants to kind of like take over everything. Because essentially what I'm gathering is that Light Fae Kingdom has all of the good resources. They have like fertile land, stuff like this. And so our hero wants to be able to get that for his people. I mean, granted, we don't really know much about him and like what his ulterior motives are, but he does describe the fact that the Light Fae Kingdom tends to have better riches and stuff like that. So he wants that same condition for his people. And I don't know if it's altruistic or if he just like wants to do that because like this war has been raging for a while. But yeah, that's kind of his plan. And to do that, he kind of needs to keep the heroine under lock and key. Like, obviously he's not the one that facilitated the kidnapping the second time around, but he is like, you know what, I'm gonna take advantage of this situation, and I think he's going to try to marry her. We haven't really gotten that far yet, but like that's sort of the gist and the vibe of what we're getting here. And you know what? I'm always torn because I feel like on the one hand, I like a story that feels unique and original. And you know, the last book that we read definitely, I would say, was pretty unique and original compared to a lot of the other fantasy romance that I read. When it comes to like the vibes I'm looking for, I really just want it to feel like high fantasy with some sex in it. You know what I mean? I don't feel like we always need fae, but fae don't hurt for sure. I'm liking the kind of familiarity of this and or the kind of like Hades and Persephone vibes going on as well. Our heroine seems pretty steely and pretty, I don't know, determined. She's definitely not a wallflower. Her wings have gone back, by the way. I don't think I said that, but she has these like black wings now. And that's also kind of why our hero thinks that he's like destined to be with her. Oh, that's another thing. Part of the prophecy said that some chick was gonna like come and be his. And I don't know if that's like a sexual thing or like she was going to unite the kingdoms. I'm not really sure, but she's listed as a part of the prophecy. And so he's like, yeah, you gotta stick around, my good bitch. They haven't really been in contact though, which is interesting. He like captures her or like keeps her kidnapped after he kills his dad in this room. Like she's just kind of chilling in this room. She's like making friends with her lady's maid, but she has not really like talked to this guy yet. Thinking that's probably gonna happen soon, and looking forward to seeing what that interaction looks like and if she's mad, if she's willing to go along with this. I mean, I'm assuming she's not just gonna like roll over and be like, yeah, that sounds nice, I'll just chill in this demented demon palace with you. What voice am I doing? So far, so good, I think is what I want to say. The writing is pretty good. It's also really cool seeing like a friend's name at the beginning of this book. I did not realize that Crystal had something to do with this book getting published. Like she was a beta reader. I have like terrible short-term memory, I suppose, but she's in the dedication or like whatever to this book, which is sweet. I love that. Love Crystal. And I know she enjoyed this book, so, you know, gives me hopes that I will probably enjoy this one too. I mean, honestly, I feel like if the chemistry between hero and heroine rocks, like I don't really care what happens. Like for my fantasy romance, like I in theory like a good plot line, but really it comes down to the chemistry. And that's kind of what I'm finding about a lot of the romantasy that I've been reading lately. It doesn't have to be the most unique and original for me to like fuck heavily with it. Like in the last couple of romantasy videos I've done, like the books are not like wildly unique. They're mostly giving like Miss Selena Sardathian vibes, you know, but they're still good. They're still fun. So anyway, having a good time. I'm presently putting on makeup, if you were curious, to go to a Pilates workshop. I'm trying to level up my Pilates skills, going to a Club Pilates 2.0 workshop. So I might come back screaming and crying, but wish me luck. We'll talk about books in a little bit. Okay, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think we might have a winner on our hands. I am enjoying this right here. The Wraith King by Juliet Cross. What is there to say about this book? You want to be on camera? He always wants to be on camera. He either wants to eat his wet food while I talk, which it seems like he's going to, or he wants to be near me. But I feel like I've kind of already told you the plot of the book, and I don't really want to like get too deep into the spoilers, but hero and heroine have united in matrimony. I feel like that's not a spoiler to say. I just looked at the synopsis on Goodreads to see if that is a spoiler, and like, I don't really think it is. So I'm gonna just let you know they get married. I think that like this book is one that will be for you if you are someone who really enjoys romantasy where like the romance is front and center. Now that's not to say that he's like wooing her left and right or that he is like the best guy ever, but this is not a very plot forward fantasy, at least up until his 50% mark. The heroine is like learning the cultures and the customs of this guy. She is trying to understand his intentions with like wanting to marry her and or like take her to his kingdom. We're not getting a lot of like shit happening. It's kind of refreshing because I feel like a lot of the romantasy books I've read lately have had like so much plot, and that's not bad, but sometimes it's nice to read a book that is just like kind of romance centric. That being said, at this 50% mark, our heroine, I don't want to say striking out on her own necessarily, but the ceremony, the matrimony that ends up taking place, I guess we could say, leaves our heroine feeling a little bit uncertain of the hero. She's unsure of like his true intentions. Like he says that he wants to have a baby with her and that she is like his one and only, but the customs and whatnot of the kingdom are very much like he's gonna have a bunch of like concubines or whatever, like a bunch of like women he sleeps with besides just our heroine. I also find it especially interesting because like apparently that's not a custom of like everybody in the kingdom. It's literally just the king is allowed to have like a bunch of ladies. I was like, oh, I won't do that. But the way that they like join together, shall we say, matrimony has the heroine just questioning like what his intentions intentions are and like if he really likes her, that sort of thing, because she thought that was the case and now she's unsure. So she's kind of like not wanting to betray him necessarily, but she's just like not really sure like what her next move is. She does have the intention of saving her father and or other people in her kingdom who have this affliction. I guess there's like a plague going around that seems to be incurable. She feels like she is, I guess, like in charge of figuring this shit out. She has like tried to figure out prophecies and or gone to different people to try to see if there is a cure out there. And so I think that that is kind of what is on her mind at the moment. Like I think that that is kind of where things are leading. It's interesting to me though that this has come up. I wouldn't say out of nowhere. It doesn't feel that seamless though. It's not like this has like always been in her head the entire time. It seems like for the majority of the book she has been kind of trying to like survive and figure out what's happening to her and hasn't really been thinking about her future, but now she has the time to. And I'm of two minds about that. On the one hand, it feels a little out of left field for her to be like, okay, it's my turn now. I'm gonna like escape eventually and I'm gonna go save my dad who is dying of this affliction. But at the same time, I kind of appreciate that she is not so stubborn and annoying. I feel like a lot of heroines in Romantasy tend to be one type of person, you know, like they get captured and they're like, I'm gonna do anything I can to fight my way out. Even if like the person who's capturing them is like really nice to them and explains like why things are the way they are, they're just like really stubborn for no reason. Yeah, I like the slight difference, I guess, in her character. She's not someone who's gonna just like listen to whatever you tell her, but she definitely has a different way of handling and approaching things that I kind of appreciate. So having a good time. I think it's pretty fun. I like our hero as well. I also kind of appreciate the way that the like I was gonna say magic system is. I like the idea of having like dark fae and light fae. I like that they have different gods and the gods and the way the stories of the gods like kind of play out are different in the different places. So our heroine thinks she knows things about this kingdom that she may not, or like she has misconceptions that she's getting corrected as she's there. And I don't know, I think it's pretty fun. I'm enjoying it. I think if you enjoyed Radiance by Grace Draven, you might enjoy this one. A book that I'm thinking of, it might be a Scarlet St. Clair book. There's like a vampire one where, you know, this chick gets like married to the vampire king and like fucks him the whole book. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting here. Although there isn't as much sex, maybe, as that book. But yeah, very different, I would say, tonally, vibe-wise, than something like ACOTAR. So good times for sure. It's interesting how this one is like, oh, it's fae like ACOTAR, but the vibes are different. There's that other book. I mean, it wasn't like ACOTAR, but like it reminded me of other things. This doesn't really remind me of anything like truly, like it kind of is its own thing. So I guess hats off. Plan for tonight is to finish this book. I am burning a delicious candle in here. I'm hanging with my pepper friend. And we're just gonna have a delightful little Saturday night by ourselves again, because again, my husband isn't here. I realize how lonely it is to be by one's self in their own house. That you don't even have to talk because I'm talking about books. Friends, guess who's here? My husband.
Who?
He's back. Well, I was telling them, even though this is a book vlog,
that I was gonna be lost at sea.
Well, I told him you were gone and I was sad. And guess who doesn't have to be sad anymore? Me.
You don't have to be, but...
Let's talk books, shall we? I finished The Wraith King, and I'm 50% into Phantasma. And, I'm gonna say it right now, vlog is a fucking fail. But I didn't invest this much time into reading all of these books to not post the vlog. So, I'm so sorry. All of these books fucking suck. First up, let's talk about The Wraith King. I think this is probably the best one, and that's not saying much. My problem with this book would be too hard to boil down into just like one sentence, but let me try to explain. First up, Quim and Cunny are words I do not want ever to read in a book, ever. What's most perplexing is that the author goes on to have the hero of the book talk about her clit and her cunt. So clearly we're okay with using those words. Why couldn't we just use pussy? Even vagina would have been preferable.
What was the second one you said?
Cunny?
I don't think I've ever heard that one.
That's a ye olden days.
I've heard Quim, and I think Quim's kind of fun.
I eat that one more. I think more than anything, and I was
really?
Like, oh,
that was your least favorite of all of them?
It reminds me of like an octopus, like a squid. I don't like it.
Just QUI.
It's not good. I don't like it. No. If you
ever call it that,
I'm just gonna shrivel and die. Just keep that in mind. Another thing I unfortunately really didn't like. I mentioned this to y'all yesterday, right? You know, this book isn't very plot heavy, but at the 50% mark, it seems like we're going somewhere and like things are going to pick up. Things never picked up. I guess you could say there was a semblance of a plot from the 50% mark on. Our heroine is trying to like solve some riddles and shit, actually figure out why people in her kingdom have this plague and like potentially find a way to save those people. And that's like cool and fine, but that's not that exciting. And that's all that happens. Like that happens. She fucks this man. I think there's like a third act conflict, not where they break up, but where like some dangerous things happen. Again, I'm not trying to spoil the books. It's a fantasy quotes, big quotes, romantasy book. Yeah. I don't know. It's like I was into it at the beginning, you know? I was like, oh, he's actually gentle and he's soft, but it was like there was just no conflict. There was no like tension. There was no stakes. There was no angst in this book that made it compelling. It seems like every other romantasy book that I read, if you've got this sort of like setup going on where like the hero and the heroine like get together in the first book, you've got something at the end of the book that like, you know, tears them apart. Okay, and maybe that's a spoiler to say that they don't get torn apart, but they don't. It was like very domestic bliss for like the rest of the book, and I'm just like, that's kind of fucking boring. And maybe if you are in the market for something that feels, and I know people hate the fucking ACOTAR comparison, but if you want something that feels like, oh god, what is the like novella one? If you liked the novella in ACOTAR because it's very slice of life and kind of boring, you would fucking eat this up because nothing happens. So there's that. It was not the worst thing I've ever read. It was just like incredibly disappointing because I feel like the setup was good. I didn't hate the characters, but good god. I read the epilogue of this book and I was like, is this the end? Like, why is this being made into a series? Like, there's just no reason for it. So I'm gonna give it 3 stars after all that bitching. It was not terrible, but again, just like, why did I read a 500-ish page book that was pointless? Okay. And then another book that I think is kind of pointless, Phantasma. This was a book of the month selection this month and I was very excited to read it. I wish that I could say that I'm loving it. I'm not. I'm listening to the audiobook. Our main character, Ophelia, she's in New Orleans with her sissy and her mom just died. Ophelia now has the powers of her mom and she is now a necromancer, which is kind of cool. You know what I mean? I don't know about you, but like dead people are kind of interesting. What's less interesting, what's less cool is the fact that her mom, I guess, like took out loans on their like family home or something like that. She's defaulting on the loan. It's going to get repossessed and demolished, I guess. And so our heroine's younger sister decides she's going to enter into this competition called Phantasma. I think Phantasma is also the name of the mansion, like where the competition is taking place. And Ophelia goes there and tries to save her sister, but in doing so, to like find out the whereabouts of her sister, she has to enter into the competition herself. So it's from her point of view, and there's also like creepy shit afoot as well. There's devils, demons, wraiths, vampires, ghouls, like a bunch of different creatures and shit too in this house, and she is trying to solve, I guess, mysteries of the house. Like, she's in the competition, she's trying to like, you know, go through the little challenges, but at the same time she's also trying to figure out like where Ophelia is and other things. And there's also a phantom guy who she like kind of wants to fuck, or like wants to fuck her for sure. He's a little forward. I don't know, it feels like kind of pointless, and for a book that is supposed to feel, I think, very atmospheric, I don't feel like the writing really lends itself to that. I feel often lost in place whenever we are going through the competitions. Like the first like little challenge or whatever, I could not picture it really in my head as it was being described. I just don't think that the description was very rich. And I'm not saying it needs to be purple prosy, but like I just didn't really feel like I knew where I was. And I think some authors are good at that and some authors just aren't as great. And I think for this kind of story, you need to be really, really good at that. And it's kind of falling flat for me. I also don't really like the little phantom man. I think his name's like Blackwell or something like that. He like pops up at random moments and just like makes sexual innuendo. He's like, even know what darkness is, like shit like that.
Is that
like,
sexual?
I think it's supposed to be, or like, I can show you things you've never dreamed of. Like, I don't know, just like,
is it his ghost penis?
This one was probably least likely to work for me anyway, considering I did not enjoy Carnival. That is one, no, Caraval. That is one that everybody goes gaga for. Also The Night Circus. Neither of those books I'm into. I'm not really into freaky little circus shit. This one's not technically a freaky little circus, but like same vibes, you know what I mean? So, you know, it is what it is. I will finish it because I've invested this much time and a whole $7.49 into this audiobook. So like, I'm gonna be getting my money's worth and I will be finishing it. What a banger video this has been. I'm sure y'all are just like, wow, this feels like the Chandler of old. You know, I feel like most vlogs over here have been very, I say positive lately, but like I don't think we've had this bad of a run in a second, and it feels like a throwback, so hopefully you're appreciating it. I'm gonna go home and finish this shit, and then I'm gonna watch Jurassic Park, okay? I'm gonna have a good time. I've never seen it, and he wants to show me the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to show you the famous Jeff Goldblum laugh.
How's one of those cookies, too, when I get home?
Ooh. I'm glad you like them.
Feeling very...
Pumpkin cheesecake cookies from H-E-B.
Good. Well, I think part of the reason it was so good, too, is because it was, like, kind of warm, probably from being in your car. Very good. Okay.
Just throw it in the microwave for a little bit.
Someone is unhappy. Someone's honking. It's me on the inside. Okay, so I finished Phantasma. I have to say, the ending of this book, it did make up for how much I didn't enjoy the beginning of it. But I do think that we get to a place that is fairly satisfying as a conclusion. I think I made comparisons between this and like Caraval, I don't know, shit like that. What this also reminds me of, and I think that it's part of the comparison of this book. Like if you go on Goodreads, it says that this could be compared to Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I think that definitely checks out. This definitely gives Carrie Maniscalco vibes for sure. I think my problem with this book really is that the romance feels a little bit unearned. Our heroine is like obsessed with this man. She is fucking him on the steady, and it doesn't seem like they really know each other at all. And I feel like that makes sense given what we find out later on in the book, but it also just makes it not very satisfying as a story. Because like if the like interesting plot line isn't going to be there, if we're not going to actually have cool things happen during these different like trials that she's doing, these different challenges, then I need the romance at least to feel like high stakes, compelling, interesting. We're gonna unfold or uncover some of the secrets of this place with this guy, and he's gonna be like just so interesting. It just doesn't, no, he wasn't interesting. He was irritating. He was frustrating to read about, and he was someone who I just did not end up caring for. Like everything in this book like wraps up in a neat little bow. Apparently it's the first book in a series, so I'm wondering if the second book's gonna be about like the sister, because I can't see how they would like carry on with this story. I don't know. I feel like for a debut, it's fairly solid. It's just, this is not my kind of book. Again, I think this book is something that could appeal for sure to lovers of Caraval. Maybe not the Night Circus, because this is not as like beautiful as the Night Circus, but maybe a Carrie Maniscalco book. Like if you're into that kind of stuff, this is probably for you. It's just not really my thing typically. I just feel like the games part needed to be like more in this. I feel like I keep reading books that like promise that they're going to be games heavy, and then that just like never ends up happening. So I'm disappointed, you know? But the good news is that I don't have to be super disappointed because I've got a Binky at my feet, and I can't be upset when I've got Bink. Can y'all hear him purring? I don't know if you can hear him purring, but he is delicious and delightful, and he makes everything better. So while this video was a bit of a fail, I did actually have a fun time filming, and I hope that comes across. I'm very curious though what your favorite Romantasy books are this year, because I feel like in the last Romantasy video that I did, I had some real gems. Like I did have some winners, and it got me excited to read more from the subgenre, but this obviously was like not a success. But you know, I'm always looking for new Romantasy to add to my TBR, you know, especially if it's like on KU and easily accessible. But thanks so much for watching this video. I love y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.